Well, I've gone and bought something else I probably don't need. But at least I can see this as somewhat of an investment, because if I play my cards right, I might be able to get a higher rate of return. It's a truck. It's not just a truck. It's a Ford Ranger, which are kind of in high demand and hard to find, especially in as good a shape as this one is. It needs a little TLC to bring it back up to stuff and make it a daily driver, but we can handle that. That hissing sound in the background is my source of heat. That little barrel looking thing right there. Sub-zero outside. Got to have whatever I can get to warm up these old bones. But this is the driver's side view. And of course, the gratuitous interior shot. And as you can see, it has 237,814 miles on the odometer. This is probably the single worst body damage on the vehicle. Nice little crease in the tailgate. But it doesn't affect the tailgate's operation or the general overall appearance that much. And there's a view looking north. As you've probably noticed by now, the hood's already up. Several parts have been removed. Kind of got a head start before I got the camera out. Last night we got it home from the dealership. The dealer had a buyer in line for this truck before we bought it. So they started it up, brought it around front, shut it off, brought the customer out to take a look at it, and it wouldn't restart. Turns out the dealership that had it is the one that Mrs. C works at. So she calls me while I was at work and says, "Hey, there's this Ranger pickup over here, 4-wheel drive. Looks like it's in pretty good shape. We can probably get it cheap because it won't start." So she and I decided on a price to offer. She offered it, they accepted. I had a hunch as to why it wouldn't restart, and turned out that hunch was correct. I hit the fuel pump safety switch on it, and it started right up. So that was a big savings. Didn't have to spend any money in a tow bill to get it home. So we drove it home last night. The dealership's about 15 miles away, and gave us an opportunity to run it out and see what it felt like, how it drove, get a feel for it. We did determine though, however, it has a bad heater core. And when we commenced to turn the heat on, we had steam coming out the vents and a nasty bittersweet smell of burnt antifreeze. Once I realized that, I did some research on the interwebs to see just how hard it is to replace a heater core on a 2003 Ford Ranger. You got to pull the dash. Yay! So I'm really looking forward to that. And that's probably the one single worst thing that's wrong with the vehicle. Everything else looks pretty good. It doesn't have any major oil leaks. Transmission shifted fine. It drove good. Now it's just a matter of a little TLC and a heater core, and should make a pretty nice daily driver. So as I mentioned earlier, I got a bit of a head start. Put a poster board on it to make a list of things that are wrong and things still needing checked. This list isn't complete because after a while I kind of got bored with coming over here and writing everything down. And after reviewing that list and making a couple other checks, I went out and created this list of parts that I would need to buy at the parts house. Took that list with me, and there's the sales receipt of all the parts we did get. Of course, we needed new spark plugs. You can see the old ones have a bit of a gap on them. That gap is supposed to be 42 to 46 thousandths, and I would guess that gap to be closer to 60. Well, as I guessed, the gap on the old plug there, well, pretty much what I guessed. The gap on the old plug there is about 65 thousandths, which indicates these have been in there some time. Got a new air filter just so we can baseline everything and it's all done at the same time. The old air filter wasn't really that bad. Now, even though the old filter looks pretty pristine, it looks very white, looks pretty decent, here's the new filter. A lot of light coming through that one. Not so much coming through the old one. Probably was a good idea that we got a new filter. The thing that caused it to run a little difficult and check engine light to come on is this PCV hose. There's the new one. Had gotten contaminated over the years and had collapsed and stuck together. They had that wrapped up with some nice duct tape so you wouldn't have a major vacuum leak. Even still, it kept the PCV valve from working correctly, which in turn allows a lot of crankcase pressure to build up, which blows oil out of gaskets and other seals and anywhere it can relieve itself. What little oil leaks are present on the vehicle are probably due to this right here. And that's what caused the check engine light to come on because I happened to have a scan tool and we ran a scan on it and it was lean codes indicating a vacuum leak. So hopefully that'll take care of that issue. Today was the first time I had a chance to get up under it and see what was going on there. The sway bar runs across the front to keep the truck from yawing all over the road. The sway bar connectors were both broken, which is kind of odd, but a vehicle that's 12 years old with 237,000, stuff like that's to be expected. Underneath, that's about the only thing I saw that required any immediate attention. And even with the sway bar completely disconnected from the suspension, it still, yesterday when I drove home, it drove pretty good with low tires and a disconnected sway bar. So it'll probably drive like a new one with a connected sway bar and properly inflated tires. So right now what I'm about to do is put the pieces that I took off last night, put the new pieces back in place, see if we can't get this thing started up so that with this sub-zero temperatures we're having of late, I'll be able to pull this outside and Mrs. C can bring the car in and out so she won't have to get in a biting cold vehicle to go to work, because that would be bad. Well, I think we're going to start with trying to get that new PCV tube on there. Right there is where the big part connects into here and goes into the intake manifold. And then the little part curls down and the PCV valve goes right here. First off, we're going to glove up. There's the PCV valve installed with the clip and the heat exchange tube going around it. So now it's just a matter of putting our elbow between that tube that's sticking out and the top of the PCV valve. And there's the completed work. New tube in place, connecting that intake manifold vacuum down to the new PCV valve. Right down in there is where them plugs go. Let's see if we can't get them in there. Now that we've got them all gapped to specification. There's one. 1, 2, and a third one right back in there. Torque to specification using years of experience in this nice swivel-headed ratchet. And there we go with the plug wires back on. And there's the passenger side all buttoned up. Plugs installed, torque to spec, and the plug boots put back on. Boots? You mean the spark plug wires? Oh, idiot. This is something that usually just wears me out, trying to figure out how it is you're supposed to get all this box out of there just by unclipping and pulling up when it's hooked down in there. So what I like to do is I usually take the hose loose right here, pull that away, and then this box can freely come up on its own instead of trying to wrestle with all the accordion sprung hardened rubber tension that's placed on there. Oh, this is so we can put the air filter in. See? Makes it a lot easier to take the hose loose. Got your fingers crossed? Key in the ignition. Ignition turn. Contact. Yeah. The idle's a lot better too. Check engine light's gone. We don't want to run it too much because we're in an enclosed space and we don't want to die from carbon monoxide poisoning. Well, I think I'm going to do a little cherry picking, since this is an easy procedure, is to put some new wiper blades on here. Got those too. I'll show you this wiper blade. I thought it was kind of funny actually. It's flat. As you probably guessed by now, I'm fairly anal about my wiper blades. That adjustment you just saw right there was to make sure that the bottom of the V of the blade, the actual blade, was perpendicular to the glass, not askew, so that when it does wipe, it actually wipes the glass and doesn't kind of roll along it on one side and then chatter going the other way. So you want your blade square to the glass. There are few things in life that cause me more consternation than when the seat belt gets twisted up and the seatbelt clip actually is oriented in the wrong direction. This has been known to ruin many a car for me. Almost didn't buy this truck because of it. Now, all kidding aside, this does need to be placed in the proper position so that when the seatbelt is draped across you, it's not twisted up like this. So with a little silicone spray, hopefully a little bit of patience, we'll be able to achieve the goal of moving this in this direction. We have achieved nirvana. That's the way it's supposed to look. It's like brand new.